guy that I'm getting more and more bullish on, and it's kind of similar to your pick of Sam Howell, which was like a personal sleeper who like was drafted late and who I've always been like, I love this guy, but I also kind of know better. But now I'm just like, I don't know better. Like I just love
I'm
this
throwing
guy.
caution to the wind. Let's go.
Yeah. So my guy there is Khalil Herbert, and then my I'm actually changing the way I view this player is Damien Pierce. So which one do you want me to talk about?
Let's talk about Damien Pierce, because I actually feel like I'm changing my tune a bit about Damien Pierce, but more so from a seasonal standpoint than a dynasty. Like certainly from both, but I'm much more interested in seasonal than in dynasty, because I still don't think that he's like a terrific player per se, but I do think he's likely going to get virtually all of the touches in Houston this year, and that's pretty fun. So
yeah, like I don't really know necessarily how actionable this take is. I guess okay, maybe the actionability of this take is just like if you happen to already have Damien Pierce, I don't view him as a priority sell. I don't really know that I'm like going out of my way to go buy Damien Pierce just because like I don't know, he's just kind of in this ambiguous range where like I'd still rather have a first round pick than him. I think you probably have to give a first round pick to get him. So it would require like selling someone who would require either catching a manager who is somehow below market on Damien Pierce despite still having them to this point, which that seems pretty unlikely, or you like are able to find some other player who's worth something similar that you have and you don't really like that player, and then but the other person does with Pierce, and so you just like get to make a like for like swap, which I'm fine with. I guess maybe more where I'm at is like I'm not actively avoiding Damien Pierce. If I still have him, I'm fine keeping him. And if I'm in a trade discussion and you just like can't make the value work, but someone's like, I can add Damien Pierce, and then you're like, oh, that would make the value work. I'm fine just using him as a store of value. I think he's like reasonably valued. And a lot of this take is, so I've always thought that Damien Pierce was better than you did, just like at football. Like I was a little bit more intrigued by his college profile. He had a lot of fun efficiency numbers. I was like in on Damien Pierce, like actively in the very first week of rookie drafts, and he was still going in the mid-second. And I've basically never been in again since. Like he then rose to the late first, and I was out, and I've stayed out pretty much ever since, kind of until now. But I've always been out with the caveat that I like his game. I wrote him up in part 4 of my Hitchhiker's Guide. I did an article on him and on Cam Akers. And basically my takeaway is that you start off looking at Pierce's stats and you're like, he's fine. 0.20 rush yards over expectation per attempt. It's like pretty average. 37.3 rush over expectation percentage. That's pretty average. His like best numbers are his tackle breaking metrics. Really good at missed tackles forced. Really, really strong in yards after contact per attempt. And the rest of his numbers are just kind of across the board average. But you look at what he had to deal with in Houston, they were a horrendously ranked run blocking unit. They were a horrible team that had absolutely no passing game. Pierce was the only Texans runner who actually posted over 1 yard before contact per attempt. So like people were just getting swallowed in the backfield. And he had a relative success rate on his runs, so it was 7.4% higher compared to his teammates, despite facing higher box rates. And you look at everything in terms of his efficiency, whether you go raw yards per carry, whether you adjust for box rates, everything else, he had way, way better numbers than any other Texans running back who attempted anything in that absolute minefield. And PFF winds up giving him the 10th highest rushing grade. So they agreed, like, he's actually pretty good. I think Damien Pierce is like Chris Carson. Like, he's like a running back who's like good at all of the little things. He doesn't really have the top gear. He's like an okay pass catcher, but he's not that special. And that's going to keep him from ever being like an elite fantasy running back. But I think he can like be in the NFL for a while, and he's like good enough. And he's adding some level of value for a team where a team's never going to look at him and be like, we have to replace this guy at all costs. But teams are also dumb, and they might just look at this guy and be like, we can replace him if we really want to. So it can kind of go either way. The big thing that makes me more bullish on him for this year is when they first signed Devin Singletary, I was like, well, Singletary kind of sucks, and the team never like has to play Devin Singletary, but they prioritize him. They'll probably try to play him in some kind of role. Pierce is not a great pass catcher. He was a really bad pass blocker. Singletary is also a shitty pass catcher, but he's a really good pass blocker. So that's probably where they'll play him, and then maybe he'll get some change of pace touches. Week 1 of the preseason comes out. Devin Singletary plays the early downs. Damien Pierce is resting, which already a good sign for Damien Pierce that they're resting him in the preseason and playing Singletary. But even more interestingly, Singletary plays all the early down snaps, subs out on third downs for Dare Ogunbowale. So I'm thinking that's weird. If Singletary was going to play the third downs with Pierce, you'd think he'd be playing the third downs now. And then my question was, is this a 3-back committee where it's like Pierce with a little bit of Singletary and it's Dare on third downs? Or does this just mean Pierce is the third down back and they only view Singletary as like an early down complement? Well, Pierce comes out second preseason game. He does play. And he plays all 14 snaps. He stays out and plays every single third down, which is super interesting. Sometimes that doesn't mean anything in the preseason. Sometimes they just use guys in all situations because they just want to use guys and not overcomplicate things. But again, same team where with less of their starting offense playing, so less of a dress rehearsal, they made it a point to sub Singletary off on every third down. But then they left Pierce on the field on every third down. So to me, it's like a pretty strong signal that he is their every down back. And that's pretty interesting because I think the Texans could be not good, but like more of a competent, real franchise than they were last year, going from horrendous coaching staff to a Shanahan-style system, adding C.J. Stroud versus Davis Mills, getting a little better on the offensive line. I'm interested. I think he could like grind his way to a high-end RB2 finish and with a little bit of good luck, be a low-end RB.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think he's going to be this year now, is probably in the RB2, like RB 10 to 15 range. Like he's not going to be high-end RB1 by any stretch, but I think he's going to just get Najee Harris level volume basically. And
yeah, he'll be above Najee Harris in redraft. I actually moved him ahead because I think Pierce is better than Najee Harris. And I think Jalen Warren is going to play some snaps, but I think Devin Singletary might play like almost no snaps.
Yeah, I honestly think Damien Pierce might be like the number 1 snap share running back in football this year, or darn close to it. And I think that's moderately exciting. I just don't have faith that it lasts forever, I guess, would be my hindrance in Dynasty. I'm like, he'd be a good player for 1 year, but I don't want to get caught holding the bag, so somebody else can hold him. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know if you don't really usually see that many like for like running back trades. We pick on this guy all the time, but if I could swap like Rachaad White and Damien Pierce have similar value, I think Rachaad White fucking sucks. So if I could move Rachaad White for Damien Pierce and like not really have to add anything, like I would do that because I think his. Like I don't think Damien Pierce is ever just going to like lose the role with it being his fault. I don't think he's so good that a team like can't ever just do something goofy and be like, we're going to draft a running back in round 1 because we want to. Like I could see that happening, right? Like I think Tyler Algier is pretty good, but the Falcons were just like, we think Tyler Algier is fine, but we want Bijan, and like Texans could do that at any moment. I think Rachaad White could lose the job, and it will be his fault. Like I think Rachaad White could be so bad that the team's just like, can we try anyone else? Like I could see that happening.
Can we bring Peyton Barber back? We need Peyton Barber.
Right. Like I could literally see like, oh man, I gotta find this. I gotta pull this up. Like I wrote about Rachaad White too. People find it on him. And I mean, I thought this is mostly from a seasonal lens. And my take was like, you have to sell him in Dynasty if you want to take him in round 8 in seasonal drafts. It's fine, I guess. He could have a 3-down workhorse role. But yeah, I was like, what? I wrote this section. I said, what happens in a backfield where the team sucks and all the running backs suck too? Probably one of 3 things. 1, Rachaad White takes a step up from his rookie year to be an average NFL running back with every down skill set. The Bucs have no reason to look elsewhere, and he gets fed all year to fantasy success. Think David Montgomery 2019. And this is the real kicker. Option 2, the Bucs, despondent with their lack of talent in the running back room and the harrowing alternative of letting Baker Mayfield pass, futilely rotate their backs like a depressed teen shuffling their iPod for a song until the season mercifully concludes. Think the Orleans Darkwa, Paul Perkins, Shane Vereen, Wayne Gallman committee of infinite sadness on the 2017 Giants. That's something I see very presently in my mind.
That sounds pretty accurate. Yep, I'm in. I'm in for that.
Look at this. Our very first podcast episode that was never released, all we did was beat up on Damien Pierce. And now we're all in on Damien
Look at
Pierce.
us now. Look at us. Cue the Paul Reddick.